Good morning, participants. Sir, can we start, sir?
Yes, sir, we can start.
Thanks, sir. Once again, good morning, participants. On behalf of New Horizon College of Engineering and Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, I welcome our eminent resource person, Dr. L. Ashok Kumar, for today's STTP session. Dr. L. Ashok Kumar was a postdoctoral research fellow from San Diego State University, California. He is a recipient of Bhavan Fellowship from Indo-US Science and Technology Forum, SYST Fellowship from DST Government of India. He has 3 years of industrial experience and 20 years of academic and research experience. He has published 173 technical papers in international and national journals and presented 167 papers in national and international conferences. He has completed 26 Government of India funded projects worth about 15 crores and currently 7 projects are in the progress worth about 7 crores. He has developed 27 products and out of that 14 products have been technically transferred to industries and for government funded agencies. His PhD works on wearable electronics earned him a national award from ISTE and he has received 24 awards on the national level. He has guided 92 graduate and postgraduate projects. He has produced 5 PhD scholars and 12 candidates are doing PhD under SAR's supervision. He has visited many countries for industry and institution collaboration as a keynote speaker. He has been an invited speaker in 235 programs and also has organized 1 or 2 events including conferences, workshops and seminars. SAR completed his graduate program in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from University of Madras and his postgraduate from PSG College of Technology, India. And SAR's and master degree in Business Administration from IGNOU, New Delhi. After completion of his graduate degree, SAR joined as a project engineer for Several Paperboard Limited, Coimbatore. Now it is ITC Unite Kuwait. Presently, SAR is working as a professor and associate HOD in Department of EEE, PSG College of Technology. He is also a certified chartered engineer and BSI certified ISO 500001-2018 lead auditor. He has authored 14 books in his area of interest and has 7 patents to his credit, also contributed 18 chapters in various books. He is also chairman of Indian Association of Energy Management Professionals and joint secretary of Institution of Engineering, Coimbatore. He is holding prestigious position in various national and international forums and is fellowship member in IET UK, fellow member in IETE, fellow member in IE and senior member in IEEE. SAR area of interest includes wearable electronics, solar PV, wind energy system, textiles control engineering, smart grid and Internet of Things, energy conservation and management, power quality management, demand side management, power electronics and drives. Once again, I welcome our resource person to carry on this section. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let me share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Screen is visible, sir.
Okay, so thank you, Singaravelan, for introducing me and for inviting me for this program. The agenda of my presentation would be I'll be talking on smart grid, basically, and I'll focus mainly on the architecture of smart grid and the converters required for smart grid. And of course, I will be touching upon some of the research perspective involved in smart grid technology. And excuse me, if you want to speak about smart grid, you have to speak on DER, distributed energy resources. I'll be touching upon some of the points related to DER as well. And we have done some projects related to smart grid. We are doing some projects related to smart grid in the area of VAMPAC, microgrid, and group control, etc. So I'll be presenting some of the case study, and I'll finally conclude it. I'll be completing all my topics by 11:30. So I'll try to be brief, as short as possible. So the basic fact behind the smart grid technology is the requirement of power. So with the current population of approximately 1.2 billion plus, if you want to make these people live comfortably, you need the basic power requirement for these appliances. Like if you, as per the statistics, the primary family priorities are the TV, washing machine, fridge, and air conditioner. So these are all the primary priorities of an average Indian family. So if you take air conditioner alone as a primary load, you need at least 400 gigawatt of power only for making the people cool. So this is very, very raw statistics saying the importance of the requirement of power. And if you see the population of India, based on the population, almost 1/3 of the Indian villages are not electrified properly. Even though we say our grids are networked, and we are saying that one nation and one grid policy, some of the villages are not electrified yet. And to provide at least 1 unit of electricity per day, approximately, if you take solar power as a main source of energy, we need at least 15,000 to 20,000 megawatt of solar capacity. Even though solar is abundant in India, by 2020 we say that 200 gigawatt to be achieved. As of now, we have achieved 130 gigawatt. I hope 2020 has crossed. I hope by this next quarter we may reach this required target of 200 gigawatt. And still we need to increase the power production from solar power. And if you see the present power scenario, that is all the statistics what I have shown displayed here is a very old statistics, but even then it will match the current scenario. If you see the demand and supply of Indian scenario, it will be almost 15 to 17%. But even though the installed capacity is higher than the peak demand what we have achieved, the installed capacity is 225 gigawatt in the year 2013. Even though it is a very old statistics, let me take this as an example. The installed capacity is 225 gigawatt, and that 28 gigawatt is from the renewable energy sources. During that stage, the peak demand achieved is 135 gigawatt. Now we have around like 325 to 400 gigawatt of installed capacity. The peak demand we have achieved is 300 plus. Even though we have achieved this, we have installed this 400 gigawatt, the peak demand is lesser than the installed capacity. And if you see the growth rate, it is enormous. The power requirement is enormous. 2013, the requirement is only 215 gigawatt. In the 215 gigawatt, the installed capacity is almost 225 gigawatt. So the purpose is more than the requirement we have installed more. Even then, it is not possible for us to give power to all the people in India. And if you see the projected requirement of power scenario in India, because of the increase in population, because of increase in urbanization, and because of the increase in industrial growth, we need power requirement of 1,200 gigawatt by 2050. That is a projected score. And now people are saying that by 2030, most of the vehicles will be replaced by electric vehicle. So if electric vehicle also comes into the picture, then the requirement from the power grid become increased, because we will not be depending on the petroleum refineries. We will be depending on our power grid. So our requirement of power it will get increased double-fold. So we need to meet out this demand and supply gap. On the overall, the demand and supply gap is 15% for the world. But for India, it may come around 15 to 20%. World, it is 7 to 10%. But for the India, it will be 15 to 20%. We need to reduce this demand and supply. This is a contradictory fact, right? Installed capacity is higher than the requirement, and the demand and supply is large. but even then people are not able to get the quality power. So that can be done by these basic requirement. We need to add massive addition in the power supply, and we need to augment the transmission capacity. As of now, we have 760 kV transmission line. We need to increase the voltage level so that we can reduce the losses. And if you see in Indian scenario, geographically, the generation point is very long from the required RLDC, load dispatch center, or required load. So we need to minimize this requirement. How to minimize this requirement? We need to increase the microgrid capacity so that the generation point can be nearer to the required point, nearer to the load center. And we need to increase the high short circuit level. And issues on establishment of large power corridor is like we have land and environmental issue and transmission losses, and cost per megawatt transmission is very, very high. And if you take a transmission loss, aggregated technical and commercial losses should be within the limit of 15%. But if you take India, it will be around 32.08%. It is very, very high. It differs from state to state. Karnataka is doing good, Tamil Nadu is doing good. But if you take overall average of T&D losses and aggregated technical and commercial losses of India, it may comes around 30%. But if you take any developed country, they are within the limits. Canada and US, they are in the level of 7%. So we need to concentrate on this transmission and distribution losses. And apart from that, one more important point is there are a lot of tampering of meters. There are a lot of pilferage happening between the generation point to the utilization point. Pilferage in the sense energy theft. Energy theft can happen in domestic side as well as in the industry side. So we need to address this. And the major concerns are primarily the India power source believes in coal, petrol, and gas. And these are all limited in number. And even though coal is abundant in India, 65% of our generation plant is from the coal generating plant. Even though coal is abundant in India, what we have is not a pure coal. We have to depend on other countries like Indonesia, Bangladesh, etc. Similarly, gas, we have to believe in Russian countries. And petrol, we have to believe in Arabian countries. And even though hydro generation can come under renewable energy as well as non-renewable energy, even though assuming that we have abundant water source, it requires long gestation period. And as I told you earlier, we are depending on energy import. So obviously, it is not possible for us to give supply to all the people in India. If you take key energy policies, being an engineer, you need to know the key energy policies of India. The key energy policies are energy access, energy security, and climatic change. Energy security in the sense, energy produced should be affordable by all the people in India. That is very, very important. What do you mean by affordable? Electricity, we call it as a commercial commodity. Like all other FMCG goods, electricity is also a commodity. And this commodity should be affordable. The per unit cost should be affordable. That is called as energy security. And energy access in the sense, as I told you, 40% of the population is not access to electricity. That we need to eradicate, that we need to mitigate by introducing new concepts. So another thing is, since the greenhouse gas is a very dangerous effect, is giving very dangerous effect, and it may lead to global warming, etc. If we still believe in the primary sources like coal, petrol, and gas, again we are spoiling the mother nature by emitting these these greenhouse gases. So we have to have a concern about this environmental problem, and we have to believe in some of the renewable energy sources. And the emphasis is there on harnessing utility scale renewable generation. Now the popularity is towards producing energy from biomass, biogas, micro hydro power station, then solar PV and wind, of course. And these things has to be encouraged by the government, as well as these people should be aware about the importance of installing solar PV. I don't know how many of you in this group have installed solar PV in their home. I don't know how many of you have installed solar water heater in your home. I don't know how many of you have rainwater harvesting in your home. So people should be aware of the importance of these three aspects of producing energy. And of course, we discussed about AT and C losses, and this is very, very important: quality and reliable supply. We cannot confidently say that if I measure the voltage level in my plug point, it won't give 230 voltage, 50 hertz AC always. It may vary. During off-peak time, the voltage may go up to 260 to 280 voltage. During peak time, it may go down to 160 to 180 voltage. So all the electrical appliances what we use in domestic, in home, it should work in the voltage range of 160 to 280 voltage. Means what? We are not giving reliable power supply to the product. And of course, we are not giving quality power supply. So the quality, in the sense, the generated power may have so many harmonics. Simply, I have said harmonics. It can be in different parameter indices. For example, it can be in the form of distortion. It can be in the form of noise. It can be in the form of notch, oscillatory, etc. So we have to take care of quality of the power supply and the reliability of the power supply. And most importantly, there is a lack of consumer participation in energy management. I told you already. How many of you have installed solar PV in your home, and how many of you are having energy efficient products in your home? You have a refrigerator, you have air conditioner. Is that air conditioner and refrigerator are star rated product? Are you using LED instead of conventional lamp? All the fans are energy efficient fans. So the people should people should be aware of using these energy less energy consumption product. Okay. Okay. So if you see the existing power system, so far what we have discussed is just a fact about why we need to go for a smart grid. Okay. If you see the existing power system, it comes from the generating station, transmitted, distributed, and it will be utilized. And it has different process involved in it, and it has a very complex structure, and it requires a lot of money to install a new power station or a new generating station. So it comes from generating point, and finally it will be utilized. And the utilization depends upon the voltage level. It can be a domestic consumer or an industrial consumer or a commercial consumer. And here the user does not have any choice of selecting his or her generating point. If at all, if any fault occurs in any of the component in between the generating point to the utilization point, user doesn't know about it. Only the generator can have a control on it. So this is the structure of the existing power system. And and key performance indicator of any power plant is, any power plant can be categorized under three classifications. One is it should be competitive and it should always give optimal performance. You know the meaning of optimization, right? I no need to explain, because you all people are faculty. You know about the importance of optimization in engineering field. So all these plants should always work in an optimal performance, and so that we can maintain the PLF high. You know the meaning of PLF, right? Plant load factor, utilization factor, utility factor, capacity factor should be very high. And we can classify the plants based upon its load capacity. Some plant will always work in a base load. Some plant will work for an intermediate load. What do you mean by base load? It will be having a constant load, like it won't go up or go below a particular value. An intermediate load, in the sense, during the peak time, the existing power station can be supported by this particular power plant. It will be operated only during the intermediate load, meaning like during the peak time of the industry, from morning 9 to 10 or 9 to 12, or by evening or during the day shift or whatever it is. And some of the power plant is operated for providing the backup power. For example, wind power plant, solar power plant. So power plant can be classified Hello? No. What happened when it got stopped? I couldn't. Okay. And the participants, if you have any doubt in between, you please stop me there itself. I want to clarify the doubts and then I'll move on to the next slide. Yeah, I'll be sharing my presentation now. Can you able to see my screen now? Slideshow is also visible, right? Okay, thank you. So what I was discussing was the existing power plant can be classified into three categories, whether it is working in base load or intermediate load, or it is only for backing up power. So all the power plants should always operate at an optimal performance. Apart from that, we can also support the existing power plant with the help of renewable energy systems. But the problem in the renewable energy systems are they don't give any constant input. It is a variable input. It varies from time to time. Whether you can take a wind energy conversion system or you can take a solar power plant, it varies from time to time. And the utilization factor of the wind energy and solar power plant is very, very poor. Because of that reason, people are little hesitant to use the solar power plant, but because of the advanced power semiconductor devices or power converters, people started to invest in solar power plant because the overall efficiency can be increased. Again, the existing solar PV panel, they have very good efficiency. People are claiming that the gallium arsenide solar PV panel have an efficiency of 35%. Even though PLF of solar power plant is only 17%, if you implement this solar PV concept in the existing power plant, the overall PLF may get increased. But the problem here is, as I told you, it won't require a maintenance cost, but it is not constant. So these challenges can be solved by implementing smart power generation or by means of smart grid. This is why we need a smart grid system. To explain the concept, don't complain me that I am just giving you the basics of power system, but it requires to explain the concept of smart grid. So if you see the basic electric power system, what we use now, it comes from the market, and finally it will come to the user, that is us, or either it could be commercial or industrial. So who is market now?
Please hide that message that will be displayed on your screen.
Sorry?
This screen sharing message which will be present on your screen, please hide that.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm sorry. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you, as I told you, electricity is a commercial commodity, right? Like any other commercial goods, it is also, this prices will vary. So if you want to check the price of the per unit cost, you can go and visit the POSACO website. The POSACO website will tell you the per unit cost of electricity generation from different power plant. Either it could be coal, power, petrol, gas, solar PV, wind, biomass, biogas, geothermal, or whatever it is. So who are all the market player? The markets are the requirements. Who will decide the requirement? Based on the requirement of the consumer, like industry, the domestic, as well as the commercial people, the market will decide and it will give inputs to the operation center. The operation center in turn will give input to the power generation plant, and then power generation plant will operate. Okay, and finally it will be transmitted, distributed, and finally it will be utilized. So here, as a customer, I don't have any access to the market player. I can see the present value, but I don't have any control over it. I cannot give any input to the market player. Assuming that I have a solar PV system in my home, I have asked a question to you: how many of you have solar PV system in your home? Let us say all the people you have in this podium are having a solar PV system in your home. You have utilized it for your application, and you want to give it to the market. Because as per IE rule, Indian electricity rule, I'm not supposed to sell electricity. If I sell electricity, I'll be behind the bars. Earlier, we had an IE, Indian Electricity Act, not a rule, Indian Electricity Act, that if you generate electricity by yourself, you will be considered as a criminal. Then they have ratified it. It was in the year 1948, Indian Electricity Act 1948. Then it was ratified many times. And now we have an Indian Electricity Act. As per the act, we can generate electricity and we are not supposed to sell it. If I want to sell it, I can sell only to the government, or for example, any DISCOM. Okay, I cannot sell it to my neighbor. So what can I do? I need to know what is the current pricing of my electricity which is being generated from solar PV. So based on the requirement, I can switch on the system. I can sell it. I can send it back to the grid. Then the grid, the DISCOM will give money to you. This is the present trend now. We have a reverse metering concept. We have net metering concept. But conventional grid, we have only a one-way communication. There won't be any two-way communication. I hope you people can understand what I am trying to explain it to you. And the existing system is a very, very complex system. We have wires, cable, transmission system, fax devices in between, and all are connected together in a particular fashion, particular topology. Okay, so what we need to address is, these are all the challenges we need to be addressed. As I told you, I need to follow the key energy policies framed by Government of India. The key energy policies are what? Energy access, energy security. I need to generate electricity, and that should be accessible by all. And meaning is that should be reliable as well. But at the same time, I should take care of the mother nature as well, the climatic change. The third key energy policy is climatic change. So I have to have a balance in the system. And as of now, from the market to the utilization point, I am not getting any information. But if I have implemented smart grid, I'll be getting more information from different points. How? Instead of meter, the meters will be replaced by sensors. Meters will just give the readings, the values, but sensor will give data, and the data can be processed. Here we need to implement the concepts of big data analytics. We need to implement the concepts of machine learning, deep learning, artificial neural network. So I want my system to think like a human being. Then I'll implement the concept of machine learning. Then I'll implement the concept of artificial neural network. I just want to predict the problem before any occurrence of the fault. I just want the machine to predict the problem, and they have to react proactively. Then I use the concept of deep learning concepts. See, this presentation, I'm not going to concentrate on this optimization technique, but at the end and there, I'll be telling you where you can implement the concept of optimization technique in smart grid technology. So having a data, what can I do with the data? I need to process the data, and I need to implement certain algorithms so that machine can react by itself. So for that, I need more sensor rather than more meters. And all the information has to be handled in an automated way. And the problems should be predicted. It should have the concept of self-healing capacity. For that, I need to implement so many algorithms, and I need data from everywhere. And I have to implement intelligent tools. And more importantly, I want my system to operate at the optimal value. What do you mean by optimal value? It should not be minimum, it should not be maximum. It should be operated in an optimal value. So for that, we need our grid to be a smart grid. So how do you define a grid? A grid, you know what is a grid, right? From the market, where the requirement will be given. From the requirement, the generation plant will generate electricity, and from there it will be coming to a common point. That is a grid. From the grid, it will be distributed to the load dispatch center. From the load dispatch center, RLDC, it will be distributed depending upon the user requirement. So this is the structure, this is the flow. Here, where I can implement the concept of smart grid, everywhere. From the utilization point to the generation point, everywhere I can implement the concept of smart grid. How? That is what we are going to see now. So you know what is a grid, right? So grid is a process wherein which generation, transmission, electricity distribution, all can be controlled in a single point. Okay, so that is a grid. This is the traditional example of a power grid. I think you know about it. Let me skip that. And this is the voltage level of the transmission lines. Like as of now, I told you, it is mentioned it as 765. We have around like 860, and still people are trying to increase the voltage level so that we can reduce the losses. So high voltage DC transmission, high voltage AC transmission is also possible, and people are working on it. So these are all the properties of smart generating plant. Let me not discuss this. And the smart power generation can be met with this parameter. I need a number of high performance generating units running in parallel. Okay, and each and every generating unit has to run independently. So it has to be stopped and started whenever and wherever required. And if at all, if any problem occurs, it should not disturb the other generation plant. And it should be self-healed by itself. And it should tell to the user why the problem has occurred and where the problem has occurred. So these are all the requirement of a grid to be a smart grid. And why people are little eager about implementing the concept of smart grid and how we can implement it, because as per National Academy of Engineering, this smart grid is the one ranking high ahead of internet and superhighways because of many reasons. Because smart grid involves not only people from electrical engineering, it involves people from communication engineering, information technology, computer science engineering, etc. And what is smart grid basically? It can be defined in different terminologies. You can call it as an intelligent grid, power grid, intra-grid, intergrid, intelligent grid, future grid, etc., IntelliGrid, etc. And how we can define that? If it has the following property, like if it uses two-way flow of electricity, and if it delivers power in a more efficient way, and if it could able to assume the problem or assume the fault, or it could be able to tell the event before in hand, and if all the components are loosely integrated instead of tightly integrated, then it can be called as a smart grid. In India, the concept of smart grid was started with the concept of advanced metering infrastructure, mainly for improving the concept of demand side management and to improve the concept of energy efficiency. See, advanced metering infrastructure in the sense, I think you know very well how to calculate the energy bill for home and how to calculate the energy bill for industrial applications. It is both are very different, right? For home, it is very simple. Watt into R will be kilowatt hour and 1 unit equal to 1 kilowatt hour. It is very simple. But if you take an industry, it depends upon MD, maximum demand. It depends upon KVA rating of a particular company. You need to understand the terminology CD and MD. CD is contract demand and MD is maximum demand. Depending on the maximum demand of an industry on a particular time, their electricity bill may vary. So, for an industry, I need to control the demand. It should be within the limit that has to be decided by the industrial user. So if a demand increases, obviously it has to switch off the unnecessary loads automatically. That is nothing but demand side management. Okay. So for that, they have implemented the concept of advanced metering infrastructure. Later on, it is being implemented everywhere. So what is smart grid? It can be otherwise called as energy internet. If I say energy internet, the internet involves communicating in a different protocol, communicating via different media. Meaning is it involves hardware, software, program, and a communication architecture. So combined together, we call it as a smart grid. So what this smart grid will do, as I told you, one of the important component in an electrical engineering discipline is a transformer. Let us say for the user, the immediate component what we see is the transformer. Let us say if I want to monitor the transformer, what are the parameters you normally measure? Normally I can measure the current, the voltage, the resistance value, the oil level, the temperature, the noise, vibration. Then what else? Let us say I need to measure the 10 parameter. So if any one of the parameter goes up, of course power factor, okay, and what are all the reactive power. So all these factors has to be considered. Let us say 15 parameters need to be measured in a transformer. Normally, if you see any transformer outside during in the DT distribution transformer, it will be like what? Some of the transformer may be in a good condition. Some of the transformer may be in a very pathetic situation. So how do I monitor this transformer? As of now, people used to monitor once in a while, once in a blue moon. Okay, and there is a separate schedule for monitoring the transformer. But now, with the help of smart grid concept, we can implement sensors in the transformer. And if at all, if any parameter goes abnormal, it will be immediately sent to the RLDC, then we can go and rectify the problems. And some of the intelligent transformer, we call it as intelligent universal transformer or simply intelligent transformer, can self-heal the problem. So that is nothing but the concept of the smart grid. So here I have given an example. If at all if there is any problem in the medium voltage transformer, medium voltage in the sense not at the distribution side, it may be between the transmission and the distribution. During the medium voltage transformer, it is not known where it is being located. So that is the existing problem. So to locate the problem and to locate the fault, it may take some time, and during that time we call it as either blackout or a brownout. It's not brownout actually. Brownout is a frequent power cut, but blackout, it may be a complete power cut. So that may lead to power cut or whatever, power shortage or whatever it is. So that can be avoided by means of implementing the smart grid architecture. So this is just a comparison between the existing grid and the smart grid. I think you know about it. And NIST is National Institute for Standards and Technology. So they have defined the concept of smart grid like this. So what is a smart grid? A smart grid can be regarded as an electric system that uses two-way information. We have already discussed cyber secure communication. What do you mean by that? I told you smart grid is nothing but energy internet. So energy internet means it should be on the cyber security. So it should be having a secured protocol. So it should have a cyber secure communication technology with computational intelligence. So I have sensor, and with the sensor I have acquired the data. What can I do with the data? I need to do some optimization technique, or otherwise I need to make the machine think intelligently. For that I need to program with some processor. For that we need computational intelligence in an integrated fashion across where all the parts of generation, transmission, distribution and utilization to achieve a system that is clean, safe, secure, reliable, resilient, efficient and sustainable. So this is a very good definition for defining the concept of smart grid. At the end of the definition, they have given different adjectives, but each of the adjectives has a strong technical meaning in it. For example, if I say I am generating clean energy, meaning is what? That energy is being generated from either renewable energy sources or non-renewable energy sources, but without spoiling the mother nature, meaning is it won't emit any poisonous or toxic gases to the mother nature. So like that, each and every terminology has a technical meaning involved in it. So this is one simple smart grid architecture. I would like to have I like to show a video. 1 second. This will explain to you the concept of smart grid. Singaravelan, is my video visible? Okay.
Primary power grids consist of a complex fabric of generation plants, substations, transformers, and transmission lines that supply electricity to cities, businesses, and industry. In addition to primary power grids, there exist smaller independent power grids called microgrids or remote grids. Microgrids provide power to islands, rural areas, and remote operations that have limited or no access to primary grid power. Traditionally, microgrids use diesel generators and diesel backup systems for electricity. In some microgrids, integration of renewable energy, such as wind and solar arrays, are used in combination with diesel generators. However, because they are limited in capacity to generate energy, microgrids are susceptible to potential inefficiencies that include high fuel consumption and reliability issues. Microgrids must continually manage fluctuations in demand and generation to maintain a 60 Hz frequency, which is a requirement for maintaining grid stability. Interruptions in this frequency can lead to power quality issues that can result in brownouts and, in some cases, even blackouts. To regulate frequency, it is estimated that 10% of total generation capacity must be reserved for managing fluctuations in demand and generation. This reserved capacity is used to ramp power up or down to increase or decrease electricity to the grid, while the other 90% is dedicated to baseload power. However, ramping isn't the most efficient use of generators. It consumes more fuel and increases transportation costs. It creates wear and tear on the equipment, increases maintenance costs, and leads to higher carbon emissions. Microgrids are also susceptible to the intermittent nature of wind and solar power generation. Variations in wind or partly cloudy days may cause significant minute-to-minute fluctuations in output. In response, diesel generators must ramp even harder and more frequently to smooth variations in renewable generated power, further increasing costs associated with ramping. AlterNano offers a rechargeable.
Okay. So here, So here this video explains to you the importance of microgrid. So a microgrid is something like it can be a diesel generator, it can be a power generated from solar PV or wind, or it can be from biomass, biogas, waste to energy, etc. For example, if you take any mobile communication tower, it has a microgrid. Like normally that microgrid is something like a diesel generator, but the existing mobile communication tower, they are using solar PV as well as the wind. So these microgrid can support the main power plant whenever there is a blackout or a brownout. Okay, so that is the main purpose of having a microgrid architecture. So here this NIST, already I told you the definition of smart grid, which was explained by NIST. The NIST conceptual model for smart grid is like this. So already we have explained to you the structure or the flow of power from the market to the customer. The same here, we have market, operation, service provider, customer, distribution, transmission, and generation. So here if you see, because of the smart grid architecture, the flow from the customer to the market player, there is a two-way communication between all the domains. Excuse me. All the domains are all the market players of the smart grid. So now let us see how we can implement the concept of smart grid in each and every system. So the smart grid architecture can be classified into three major systems: smart infrastructure system, smart management system, smart production system. So any smart grid, if you have an industry or if you have an institute, if you want to implement the concept of smart grid, you can easily implement if you classify it properly. So in each and every system, there is a subsystem. For example, in the smart infrastructure system, we have smart energy system, smart information subsystem, smart communication subsystem. In the smart production system, we have system reliability and failure protection, security and privacy. In the smart management system, we have management objective, management methods and tools. We will see each and every concept now. For example, in the smart energy system is one of the category of smart information system. It consists of power generation, transmission grid and distribution grid. And of course, we have smart metering, smart monitoring and measurement, sensor and phasor measurement unit. Already I told you, in India, the smart grid concept was implemented by implementing the concept of AMI. We call it as advanced metering infrastructure. Again, another important concept in implementing the smart grid concept is phasor measurement unit. So instead of metering, we'll be replacing the metering with the help of sensing equipment. And the sensing equipment will have another another measurement unit called as phasor measurement unit. And what do you mean by phasor measurement unit and what it does? Let us say I have three different loads: domestic, commercial, as well as the industry. And from these three different loads, I can take any number of data. For example, if you take domestic, I can take data from all these loads and I can give it to a data aggregator or a concentrator. And from there, it will be given to the RLDC as well as to the utility. So this data, for the purpose of taking data, is it will tell you the requirement. So based on the requirement, the power generator can generate energy. And apart from that, the implementation of grid and the technology integration can be done with the help of these three things. First one is by implementing phasor measurement unit or by having WAMPAC. WAMPAC means wide area measurement, protection and control. Or by implementing flexible AC transmission system, by having an adaptive islanding technique, we have a self-healing grid, probabilistic and dynamic stability assessment, distributed and autonomous control. By having these techniques, or by implementing these concepts, we can implement the concept of smart grid architecture. So first, let us see what do you mean by phasor measurement unit. So here, phasor measurement units are the devices which use synchronization signal from the GPS and provide voltage and current measured at a given location. For example, if you see here, I hope you can see my pointer. You see here, assuming that this is an RLDC, Regional Load Dispatch Center. So this is a network line. In that network line, we can implement a PMU at different locations. PMU is phasor measurement unit. What is inside PMU? We will see in the next slide. So this PMU will give data to the RLDC. What type of data? It will give the current, the voltage and the latitude and longitude of that particular place. So these data will be transmitted via PMU through the satellite to RLDC. Okay. So what is the benefit? So this PMU will give a time synchronized data. And apart from that, earlier we used SCADA and DCS measurement in RLDC. And the SCADA and DCS normally will estimate the data, but here it is measuring the data. And if you see here, this is the typical diagram showing the SCADA of a particular RLDC. This is taken from KPTCL. Okay. So this is the RLDC. So here, if you see here, and each and every place, depending on the requirement, this is keep on varying. So this SCADA will give what? The energy management, the peak load, station and transformer load and current profile of different feeders, battery status, duration of interruption because of any of the faults, and we can operate the breaker, OLTC, capacitor bank remotely. You know the importance of operating OLTC, right? On-load tap changer, and the importance of operating the capacitor banks remotely. Depending on the requirement of the power factor, we can remotely switch on and switch off the capacitor bank, even though we have APFC, automatic power factor correction, everywhere. But we can also operate with the help of a SCADA. But the problem with the SCADA is it will just estimate the value, but PMU can measure it. If you see here, the inputs requirement of the PMU, it may look like a conventional meter. Apart from that, it has input and output, inputs for measuring the current and inputs for measuring the voltage. We can implement the CTPT, or otherwise we can implement Hall sensor. But CTPT is a cost-effective solution. If you implement Hall sensor, Hall effect sensor, it can measure current and voltage with the help of a single sensor. That depends upon what type of input you give. Either we can give analog input or digital input. And we need a power supply to operate the system. And we have a GPS system. And that's it. And whenever there is a fault occur, immediately the current and voltage value during that time, during the occurrence of the fault, will be transmitted along with the latitude and longitude to the RLDC. And if you see here, this is the comparison showing the SCADA measurement and PMU measurement. So the samples per second is typically 25 to 50 samples per second in the case of PMU, but it is only 4 to 10 seconds per sample of a SCADA. During this time, the system doesn't know what has happened. During this time, any of the ME may have failed. Any ground fault has again occurred, but that won't be reflected in the SCADA measurement. But all these data will be reflected if I have implemented PMU. So if you have any doubt related to PMU, you can ask me now. So this is the concept of phasor measurement unit, and in Bangalore, CPRE is working on PMU concepts. If you want more detail about PMU, please go and visit their website. We also had PAG Tech. We have developed a small PMU that is only for a local implementation. We have a smart grid laboratory here, and we have implemented that PMU, and we have tested for it, because we have a project sanctioned by DST and coming under Asia. In that, 3 countries are involved in that project: Thailand, AIT, Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand, and National Institute of Technology, Indonesia, which is in Malang, Indonesia. We three institutes are involved in that project. In that, we are developing a WAMPAC system: wide area monitoring, production, wide area measurement, production, and control system. In that, we have developed a small PMU as a prototype. And some of the new paradigms in the systems are microgrid, that we have already discussed it. And another important concept where every researcher has to concentrate is G2V and V2G. I think many of you have heard about this terminology. G2V is grid to vehicle, and V2G is vehicle to grid. See, there is a specific road in Israel, in Tel Aviv. The capital of Israel is Tel Aviv. And if a vehicle is on that road, the vehicle gets charged. If it is an electric vehicle, the vehicle gets charged if it is driven through that particular road. And it is working on the principle of induction charging. Similarly, any vehicle can be connected to the grid, if at all it requires charge for charging the battery. Assuming that I have an electric vehicle which is being charged by a solar PV system. So morning I came to college at around 8 o'clock, and evening I'll go by 6 o'clock, 6:30. So morning I'll be parking my vehicle in the parking station. From morning 8 to leave 8 o'clock, by morning 9 o'clock to evening 3 o'clock, there will be peak sun, and power will be generated by means of solar PV. And the solar PV will charge my vehicle, that is the battery. And from the solar PV to the grid, I can able to connect, and that the power which is being generated from the solar PV can be connected to the grid. I will be having a separate meter, and that meter will calculate the number of units which is being exported from the vehicle, and that concept is called as vehicle to grid technology. Similarly, from the grid I can able to charge. That is called as grid to vehicle. Hope you people can understand. If you have any doubts, you please ask me. Any questions in chat box, Singaravelan? Okay, so this is the concept, and this is the new concept. Here you need to know what type of converter you need to choose for vehicle to grid concepts. Leave grid to vehicle or vehicle to grid, but you need to know what type of converter. Presently, people working on bidirectional converter. Similarly, you need to work on a cycloconverter as well, because if you connect DC to AC and then AC to AC, if you are connecting it to the grid, you need to connect it to a voltage which is an acceptable level by the grid. So that has to be taken care by implementing a proper converter topology. This is the one of the research area. Okay, and more importantly, in smart grid architecture, I told you we'll be replacing all the meter with the help of sensor. So if all the components, right from the breaker to the transformer, if all the components are being integrated with the help of sensor, we need proper communication methodology. Meaning, communication methodology means communication media. As of now, we have 2 communication media: wired media and wireless media. In wired, as of now, we are using PLCC communication, power line carrier communication, and ABT systems. These are all the systems we normally use. And in most of the RLDC, since it is automated, people will work on optical fiber communications as well. You know the advantage of substation automation, right? If you want more detail about that, you please see the standard 61850. And since smart grid architecture comes into the picture, you need to talk on these wireless technologies as well. You need to implement the cellular communications like 4G, 5G, wireless mesh network, and more importantly, as an engineer, we need to know what is IEEE 802.15. And of course, we need to know about LTE, microwave communication, satellite communication, and cognitive radio. Excuse me. These are all the communication system which is used for smart grid architecture. Okay, and the future researches are the interoperability of communication technology. what is the compatibility of each and every component? Because I'll be talking in some other, let me say, there are different switchgear component. You know what are all switchgear component, right? And each and every switchgear component are from different vendors. So each and every vendor will have a separate protocol for communication. So each and every switchgear component should talk to each other, even though it is from the different vendor. Meaning is what? Interoperability of communication technology is very, very important. You should have a common protocol for communication methodology. So that is the areas of research. And very importantly, under smart management system, we have two important points: energy efficiency and demand profile. And second, unit cost and price. Of course, we have emission also. So what do you mean by energy efficiency and demand profile? See, if I think many of you have gone for energy auditing, or you might have heard about the concept of energy auditing. If you want to go and audit an industry, the first point you need to know is the profile of the industry. What do you mean by profile of an industry from the electrical engineering point of view? You need to know the load profile of the industry. If you see the load profile of the industry, you will come to know the health of the industry. Meaning is what? You need to know when it is going peak, when it is working in a base load, when it is working at the optimal load. If you know that at a particular point of time, always it is working in a peak load, then you need to concentrate on that time for doing energy auditing. And always the load profile curve is flat. It should not be peaking, and it should not have any valley at all. That is called as the demand profile shaping. And the demand profile shaping can be done automatically with the help of smart grid technology. And of course, you need to concentrate on energy loss minimization as well. And as per the requirement of the market, you need to know what energy to be utilized at what time. So you need to know the utility cost and the price of the particular system. And of course, you need to know the emission. I think you know the difference between IPP and CPP. As per Indian Electricity Act, if you are an independent power producer, if you are using steam for running your industry, you are not supposed to use coal for generating steam. You have to have a cogeneration plant for generating steam. If not, you have to pay fine. That is the rule. I don't know, many of you know about this Indian Electricity Act and the rule. That is the act we have, because people are trying to emit less carbon dioxide from the industry. If you have coal power plant, then you will be emitting more carbon dioxide and you will be spoiling the mother nature. Instead, if you use bagasse or any other means to generate steam, then you need to install a cogeneration plant in your industry, in your premises. So that also can be accommodated in your calculation of electricity bill, and that can be done with the help of management objective. I think you can understand what I'm speaking. If not, you please raise your question. And some of the management methods are, here we can do wonders. Here we can do research. Some of the management methods and tools are optimization technique, machine learning technique, game theory, and auction. Let us not worry about the game theory and the auction. Let us worry about some of the optimization technique involved in smart grid technology. There are like convex programming, dynamic programming, stochastic programming, robust and PSO, and Carney algorithm. Many algorithms are available for optimization. Even though it has reached the saturation point, still people are doing research in the field of optimization technique. And of course, you know the importance of machine learning, right? Because in the smart grid, earlier people used only measuring the particular parameter. But since we are implementing sensors everywhere, now we can able to what? Sense the data, sense the meter, sense the parameter. After sensing it, you'll be having a data, and what can I do with that data? We need to process it. And that processing algorithm can be done with the help of either deep learning or machine learning concept. We need to train the machine. We need to make the machine to learn certain concepts if any situation occurs. And how a machine should react if a situation occurs. At that concept, we need to make the machine learn. Okay, that can be done with different programming languages. Okay, and in the smart production system, we have metering and measurement, and information transmission. So in metering and measurement, we have smart metering, monitoring and measurement. In smart metering, security and privacy. And this smart metering concept is already implemented everywhere. In my home, I have a smart meter. I have replaced that meter with the net metering concepts. I have replaced that energy meter with the net metering concept. I have a solar PV, 3 kV, 3 kW solar PV system in my home. I have connected it to the grid, but I'm not exporting it to the grid. Mind it, I'm not exporting it to the grid. I'm utilizing it for my own application. If I'm not at home, if my load does not require energy, I don't need to switch it off the solar PV system. It will be simply connected to the grid. If the grid supply is there, I'll be getting power from the solar PV. If not, I won't. So the smart metering concept is something like it is coming under 4 different categories. It has a bidirectional meter. Okay. So for example, we'll see that smart metering later. Before that, let me see what do you mean with because smart metering will come under the utilization point. So far we have discussed the generation. Now we'll move on to the transmission. On the transmission side, the implementation of smart grid can be implemented in 3 different fields. One is smart control center, smart power transmission network, and smart substation. Okay. Again, I'm telling you, one of the important concepts and that needs to be included in your course, in your board of studies, is substation automation. That is very, very important. If you are implementing smart grid technology, you have to add this concept as a separate course, substation automation, and mainly to improve the power utilization, power quality, system security, and system reliability. Again, you need to have a separate lab called as a reliability engineering laboratory. So reliability in the sense, if you are giving a supply to your motor, you have to give a reliable power supply. Reliable power supply in the sense 230 voltage AC 24/7 365 days all this. That is not possible practically, but we need to have a system to give the constant power supply always. So in the distribution side, most of the problem occurs in the distribution side because we are the one who produces the hormones. Okay, and the distribution side, we can easily implement the concept of smart grid. And if you implement the concept of smart grid, it may lead to what can deliver sustainable energy with increased efficiency and improved customer satisfaction and improved reliability. And why we need to implement smart grids for India? Mainly for reducing the distribution losses. As I told you, T&D losses of Tamil Nadu is 13% within the limit. Actual limit is 15%. Similarly, the T&D losses of Karnataka is within the limits. But if we take different states of other East India or West India or northern part of India, the distribution losses are huge. If you aggregate, because since we have networked all the grid, we need to bother about the average T&D and AT&TC losses. Okay, we need to reduce it. And secondly, we need to delegate the power and for the optimal usage of the system. Because let us say I have abundant generation than the requirement, then I'll be able to give power to the nearby states. That is also possible if I am able to decentralize the power generation point. And apart from that, we need to explore alternate methods of storage. 6 months from now, people will be using lithium-ion or lithium family of batteries. As of now, people believe only in lead-acid and nickel metal hydride batteries. But in future, people can use lithium-ion batteries for power generation and for alternate storage method also. Apart from that, we need to concentrate on fuel cells as well. PEM-FC is more promising now. But it may occupy more space. Lithium-ion battery, it will occupy less space, but the cost is high. Fuel cell, we can easily generate energy, but even then it has some problem like, what will I do for the hot water exhausted from the fuel cell? And we need to provide solution for that. And for 1 kilowatt, it will be coming in stacks. 1 kilowatt fuel cell stack, it will occupy more space. So we need to find an alternate method of storing energy if you want to implement renewable energy systems. And you need to know how to handle peak demand better. So each and every topic I have disclosed here is a research topic. You need to find a solution. And you need to manage the demand and supply. And you need to calculate the demand and supply at different levels. Based on the level, you can manage with the help of different optimization or management, MBO, management by objective method. For that, we have different algorithms. We have discussed it already. And we have to decide intelligently how to face the load shedding problem because of different power quality parameter or power quality indices. And as of now, we are using two-part tariff system, and people should be accessible for TOU or TOD metering with remote monitoring facility. TOU is time of use or time of day metering technology. So these are all the requirements of smart grids in India. Excuse me. These are all the requirements of smart grids for India. And the vision of, I'm not going to read all the points displayed here. This is going to be the vision of a smart transmission grid. So what it says, if you see the roadmap of smart transmission grid, we need to do following changes, like we need to digitalize all the components involved in market player to the utilization point. And it should have the flexibility of expanding for future development. As I told you, by 2050, 1,200 gigawatt will be the requirement. See, let us say by 2030, all the people have replaced their diesel vehicle with the help of electric vehicle. Okay, let us assume that like this. All the diesel vehicles have been replaced by electric vehicle. Instead of pumping station, we'll be having charging station everywhere. Pumping station may have a different frequency, different efficiency, but I have charging station everywhere. So what I'll do, I'll be getting charge from the local grid, and the local grid should have the capacity to give power to the extra load, and that extra load may vary from time to time. During peak time, the extra load may be very, very high. During off-peak time, it may be very less. So these extra load has to be accommodated, and you need to have a flexible switchgear component to accommodate all this extra load, and all are for further or future development. And more importantly, it should have intelligent control. What do you mean by intelligent control? You have different parameters to be monitored, right? For example, we have voltage, current, VAR, KVR, carbon dioxide emission, security, stability, synchronization. So all these things has to be carried out by a particular controller in an intelligent manner. And very importantly, resiliency. What do you mean by resiliency? It is nothing but the reliability property. We have discussed enough about the reliability. So a particular smart grid will enable delivering electricity to the customer in a reliable way. And it should have the sustainability, meaning is it should be an environmental friendly power generation system. And of course, it should have the customization. It should be a tailor-made system. And to achieve all these main characteristics, okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, all these characteristics, we want our transmission grid should have what? Smart control center, smart transmission network, and smart substation. Okay, and what do you mean is smart control center? If you want to make a smart control center is something like RLDC. The RLDC is being replaced by smart control center. RLDC is regional load dispatch. I think many of you have visited RLDC. It is operated fully by means of optical fiber communication. It's full of SCADA and the DCS. DCS means distributed control system. You can operate, you can switch off, on, you can see the fault occurrence, everything remotely, and we can give a solution to that. But that itself is not sufficient. We need to convert that RLDC to a smart control center. How? You need to replace SCADA and RTU. RTU means remote terminal unit with PMU and GIS. SCADA will have an automation, but that automation is not sufficient to predict the problem. RTU will able to control a system, but that is not possible to locate the problem accurately. Okay, for that we need to implement or replace with the help of PMU and GIS technology. And each and every system should have the analytical capability, right? And all are now frequency and time domain based. It should have the analytical capability to have a stable voltage and current. And of course, we have to have a control statistics, because it should have a dynamic control statistics. And it should be, you please remember the NIST conceptual model of smart grid. Each and every component or a domain, we call it as a domain. There are 7 domain or 7 actors in the smart grid architecture. Each and every domain should have strong communication in between them. A customer should have an interaction with an electricity market. And here comes the smart transmission network. Here we need to implement all the power electronic concepts to implement the concept of smart transmission network. So as of now, we have a 760 kV transmission line. This transmission line has to be increased to a higher level so that we can minimize the losses. Okay. And we have to use advanced power electronic. For example, earlier people used APFC, power factor correction, with the help of what? Capacitor banks, parallel capacitor banks. But there are a lot of disadvantages in using the capacitor banks. Even though it has many advantages, one is cost, another is easy to implement. There are a lot of disadvantages, and that can be replaced by STATCOM. One example of implementing fax devices. And another thing is, like, we have to implement HVDC and power electronic based devices. For example, in the case of a relay, we replace the OLR with a microprocessor based relay. OLR will give only protection in overload. But microprocessor based relay can able to monitor 15 parameter. It can able to check 15 kinds of faults. Okay, so we have to replace everything with a microcontroller based system. And all the systems in this network, transmission network, should have the capacity of self-healing capacity. Meaning is, we have now power line carrier communication or PVT systems. Apart from that, we need to have a separate system for monitoring the line as well as the transformer as well as the circuit breaker. Okay, and we need to condition monitoring all these things. To condition monitoring all this parameter, we need to know what are the parameters to be sensed, what are the parameters to be monitored. And of course, we have advanced transmission facility. And if at all, if any fault occurs, like extreme weather or floods, we need to know how to control, how to handle the system, or how to control this extreme blackout or a power shortage. And smart substation, as I told you, is a very important concept, and it has to be implemented everywhere. The smart substation involves digitization, autonomy, coordination, and self-healing. Even though it is a repeated terminology, but when we implement it practically, each and every component properties may vary. Okay, we are not going to replace all the things, but we are just retrofitting the concepts. Retrofitting the sense, the system will be there, transformer will be there, and we'll be having an additional black box, and that black box will have the system to monitor the required parameter, so that we can make the conventional system an automated system. And we should have smart sensing and measurement. We should have a strong communication methodology, and of course, all these things we have discussed it. Fine. So as I told you, in India, the concept of smart grid was implemented by the concept of advanced metering infrastructure. And the milestones in implementing this concept is, in the year 1872, electricity meter was invented, and till 1980s, people used only the concept of the spinning disk meter. There are many ways in which we can tamper that spinning disk meter. If you place a magnet over that, the meter won't run. We don't need to pay the electricity bill. But with the help of solid state electronics, solid state devices, digital meter has been implemented, and some of the problems of tampering was avoided. And in the year 1990s, first automated meter reading was implemented, and in the year 2009, net metering with two-way communication or bidirectional meter was implemented. And it has in a 4 different ways. For example, if you take a smart meter, even you can give it as a PG project, the concept of smart meter. It consists of a SIM holder and communication. For that communication, we have an antenna, and we have analog sensor like CT and PT, or otherwise a digital sensor can be placed. And it has a user portal, user console, wherein which the communication can be done through some proper protocol. It has a user login and ID. Since it is SIM, each and every meter will have a unique ID. Okay? And that can be communicated. If you see the smart meter, it is nothing but an advanced metering infrastructure. It comes under 4 categories. Like it has following functions. It will respond to the theft, demand, application control, remote disconnect and connect, outage management, load control, and energy accounting. All these things are possible with the help of smart metering. So it comes in 4 categories, category 1, 2, 3, 4, and it has 3 properties. If it has a basic smart metering requirement with the two-way communication, connect and disconnect switch with the phase and neutral, and as a bidirectional option. Okay, and this category depends upon the load as well as depends upon the property. So with this smart grid implementation in smart generation, transmission, and distribution point is over. Now let us see how DER can be classified. Distributed energy resources can be classified depending upon its power capacity. So the conventional is, if it is greater than 500 megawatt, it is a conventional system. And in the case of a distributed system, it comes from 1 megawatt to 10 megawatt. 1 megawatt diesel generator, we can call it as a distributed energy resources, or otherwise we can call it as a microgrid. So it can support what? Different types of power disruptions. And the power disruptions can be classified basically into power shortages and power quality issues. In power shortages, basically we have a blackout, a complete loss of power. Rolling blackout, it is intentional and it is mainly for maintenance applications, just for a temporary shut-off. And brownout is a very, very dangerous thing, and it is dangerous for all the equipment. And it is a voltage reduction, and it may be intentional because of peak power load or for compensating it for the peak power load. And we have to address this issue of a power quality. There may be a voltage sag or a swell, interruption, oscillatory. There are many things, and similarly there may be a frequency fluctuation. And this is a very, very alarming situation, the frequency fluctuation, because as of now we have frequency variation should be in the range of 49.82 to 50.2. If it is below or above, the company has to pay fine. So these issues has to be addressed with the help of having a separate backup power like distributed energy resources. So that we call simply as a DG. So DG comes in different ranges, and it is these are all the possible opportunities of having a DG. We can have wind, photovoltaic, thermal, fuel cell, OTEC, oceanic thermal energy conversion, micro hydro turbine, combustion turbine, etc. So this is the concept of distributed generation. Like we can have different energy sources, and that can be connected together. For example, diesel generator, wind, solar PV, and fuel cell that can be connected to the central generation. Apart from supporting it for the load, it can give power back to the central generation as well. So we have generation, transmission, and distribution. This is the conventional power grid. In the case of a distributed grid, we can have an additional generator, either it could be a diesel generator or any other system. So if you implement the concept of smart grid, it may be easy to implement the concept of smart city, because one of the important mission is SCM, Smart City Mission. Under Smart City Mission, we have different key elements. The key elements are, we have discussed about smart grid, smart security, transport, building, waste management, water management, e-education, medical, and governance. So if we implement the concept of smart grid, it may be easy to implement other key elements of smart city missions. Some of the research problems in smart grid are already I have discussed. TOD or TOU to the customer, reducing the distribution losses, finding an interoperability in the communication protocol for smart grid, and how to integrate DG with the smart grid, how to give secure and quality power supply, how to implement the concept of self-healing in smart grid, and how to address the some of the power quality issues in smart grid. So these are all the research problems in smart grid. So now let us discuss about some of the case studies what we have done at PSG College of Technology. So this is one of the concept of smart grid. So here what we did is like we have taken a 10 kilowatt solar PV system and that is being connected to the grid. And the 10 kilowatt solar PV system is again classified or different, divided into two 5 kilowatt. One 5 kilowatt is made up of monocrystalline. This is the line diagram of that. Another, this is the picture of 5 kilowatt solar PV system. This is the solar PV panel and the corresponding inverter connected to the grid. And another one is 5 kilowatt thin film. Normally thin film is installed in the ground, but we have installed in the roof. Okay, so now we have two systems, 5 kilowatt monocrystalline, 5 kilowatt thin film. It is being connected to the grid. Apart from that, we have a separate wind turbine generator. So here again, what we did is like we have taken 4 wind turbine generator of different capacity, SCIG, SRIG, PMSG, PMDC. And these wind turbine generators are being connected to the grid. Again, instead of disturbing the conventional grid, we have emulated a grid with the help of an alternator. And it is being connected to the grid with the help of a converter. And this converter is a multi-input converter. It gets its input from solar, battery, as well as from the wind turbine generator. So once it is connected, it can be given to an alternator, and we can simulate the fault. We can emulate the fault, and we can see the response of the corresponding solar PV system as well as the wind turbine generator. So in that way, we can able to emulate the smart grid, and we can replace any of the wind turbine generator, and we can integrate any solar PV system in this conventional grid. So this is the outback multi-input outback inverter, and this is how we can check the wind turbine generator, which can be connected to the load. Similarly, we have also developed a 1 kilowatt solar PV tent, flexible solar tent. So this is the procedure. This is out of scope of this presentation, but for understanding I have given. So here this is a 1 kilowatt solar PV system. This is again another microgrid. Here, apart from using it for their own application, like the normal load, it can also be connected to the grid. Apart from that, we have a dedicated smart grid lab. This is used for monitoring and the controlling of the entire power system in our college. Here, here we can do the real-time control. We can check the real power capacity of a particular block. So here, each and every block switches, the lights and fans can be controlled remotely. Okay, so this is the different blocks we have, and it will tell you the power consumption of the blocks in each and every system. For example, we have I block. The I block capacity is 110.9 kilowatt at that particular instant of time. Similarly, we have a solar PV system installed. On that particular day, the solar PV generation is very low. The power capacity is 419 from EB, from solar 4 kilowatt, and total is 423 kilowatt on that particular time. So this is the corresponding system, and we have solar as well as wind. We can calculate the AC load, we can calculate the UPS load. This is the corresponding SLD. So with this, I would like to wind up my session. Now let me share with you some of the centers of excellence available at PSG Tech. We offer internship from these centers of excellence. These are all fully funded by the corresponding industry. This is PSG Pros Center for Excellence in Solar PV. We have solar thermal systems also, and this is the Center for Renewable Energy System. And this is the AICTE sponsored wind emulator lab. And this is the smart grid lab. And DST sponsored solar air conditioning lab. And in conclusion, smart grid is a very good technology wherein which we can implement a lot of things in the system, and it is one of the system we need to implement it for a research aspect also. Okay, so these are some of my books which will be useful for the researcher as well as for the academicians. This is the book about solar PV and wind energy. I'll quickly run through it. If you have any doubts, you can please ask me now. Okay. You don't need to implement it in software. You can directly implement it in the hardware, because smart meter involves only two sensors, a CT and PT, and you need a SIM. You can take the conventional meter, and in the conventional meter, you can, if you want to implement it in MATLAB, very simple. You can create your own toolbox. You don't need to take a toolbox from the existing MATLAB system. You need a CT, PT, and a GIS locator, and you need to connect it to the load. CT and PT is to measure the current and voltage, sense the current and voltage, and the GIS will give you the location, and you can place it in any of the transmission network, and it will tell you if you can generate your own fault. You can create your own fault, and after that it will tell you exactly when the fault has occurred, or where the fault has occurred with the help of that smart meter. See, that depends upon the capacity of your motor. For example, let us say you are taking a three-wheeler motor, let us say 3 kilowatt. So 3 kilowatt motor will be supplied by a 24 volt battery. So you need to give power to that 24 volt battery. So for the 24 volt battery, you may put 2 panel or 3 panel, and you need to know the capacity of the panel. That means the size of the panel. Okay, so it all depends upon your battery size, and all depends upon the capacity of the motor which is being used for your electric vehicle. PLCC is a very old system. PLCC is something like power line carrier communication system, right? From the generation point to the transmission point, how the power is being transmitted, and the communication between the generation to the transmission point is being carried out with the help of this power line carrier communication. It consists of a lot of switches. It is being manufactured at different locations. You can go and Google it. It is earlier it was at BPL. Nowadays there is no BPL. Many meters are there for PLCC. Power line carrier communication is mainly for transmitting the power from the generation to the transmission network. See, both, you should not compare microgrid and smart grid. Microgrid is something like any system which is having a generating capacity. We call it as a smart grid or microgrid. And if you connect microgrid to the existing grid, or if you have a microgrid connected to different load, we can call it as a smart grid. You should not compare smart grid and microgrid. Microgrid can be connected to the existing grid, then we can call the grid as a smart grid. Yeah, I have displayed the reference to you now. I have written a book on power converters for electric vehicle. You please go through it. It is published in CRC Press. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I want to ask one more question.
Yeah, please.
So there is a concept of the small micro hydropower plant, in that there are various categories have been implemented, like runoff, river flowing, canal flow, and dam flow. If one want to implement some this runoff river flow small micro hydro plant, and need to because they don't need a storage plant, they're continuously providing powers because of small reading. So and I'm starting from this like this hydropower plant too for analysis.
Singaravalan, I think she's having some network issue. What is her question exactly? You can also put a mail to me directly. I have shared my mail ID and phone number. If any participants wants any clarification, you can ask me directly. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks participants for the patient listening. Thank you.